Welcome to Keeping Your Head Up Hockey. I'm your host, Jamie, and thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you tuning in tonight. Big game going on here. Game two, rocking and rolling. Game two coming up. Got to get excited. I'm your host, Jamie, but we got J-Dog in the house from
What's up?
Canada. J-Dog, how does the after playoff win feels when you woke up this morning? How were they?
It was pretty good. I'd have to say I actually went to my restaurant and there was probably 10 people on buses there that were going to excursions, and they were all jacked up over the Leafs win. I was wearing my Leaf hat this morning and everybody was like, "Oh, you watched the game?" And I was like, "Oh, of course." So it was kind of fun. It's carried on through since the other night. So definitely liking the people that are getting all jacked up for the games and the Battle of Ontario. We had one guy from Ontario, or one guy that was an Ottawa fan that was on the bus, and then there was another guy that we all agreed that was not very well liked, and he was a Montreal hat wearing guy. So everybody was picking on him, so it was kind of funny. Even the Americans, that was funny. So it was pretty good.
I love it. Well, you know what? We're going to jump in and talk about my favorite Leaf of the year. We talked about him last show, but we got to talk about him again. He played great. Matthew Knies leading the way. I thought, he was getting in the corners. He was getting dirty and played a great hockey game. And he's played a great game all year, right? So also wanted to show a little bit of artwork that I got from my buddy Brian Chudy. Brian Chudy does a lot of Leaf stuff, and I tell you, this guy is outstanding. If you ever want, any sports or really any painting done, this is your guy. But this is Matthew Knies' rookie card, but a painting
cool.
done of it, and I thought it was
Yeah, that's
pretty
nice.
cool. So yeah, wanted to show it on the show.
Well done.
But yeah, he played fantastic. Got a goal last night. What do you think about Knies and his? He's so young, but he's such a great leader.
Yeah, he's been a great leader, and most importantly, okay, they got 6 goals last night, so maybe a goal or two is not the most important thing, but when the other team only scores 2, it's likely because you're doing a lot of defensive play. And last night he took 2 bullets off the body, one off the arm, I think, and the other one off the foot. He's out there blocking shots. This is something that the Leafs have not done in the last 20 years. And going back to, well, maybe not 20, but going back when Orr was playing for them, like that, and Rosehill and whatnot, those guys were actually pretty good shot blockers. But I'll tell you, this year, this is a forward doing that job. I know Orr was forward, just but this is a guy that's willing to sacrifice the body. I'm going to say that he's been talking big time to Mr. Berube, and he's telling him what it takes to win. And
yeah.
The youngest guy on the team, or one of the youngest guys on the team, is showing the adults how to play.
I love it. And you know what? You can't forget, though, like the Leafs have got a lot of alumni, right? Like, obviously, there's going to be some leadership opportunities to spend some time with, let's say Darcy Tucker or Wendell Clark or or Ty Domi, right? Those guys are coming in too, and really try to take these guys under their wing and try and help them be the best Leaf that they can be. And I guarantee that's happening.
Well, I would imagine that's something that's done quite frequently. I think they brought Matt Sundin in earlier in the year, and a couple other guys. And I believe that's obviously inspiring. And depending on who you are, it could be all inspiring. But I will say this: you have to have the drive, you have to have the want, and you have to have the ability to be able to sacrifice yourself. And not everybody has that. And I've seen it in real life, and I've seen it, and I don't mean just in hockey. I've seen it. I was in the military. I've seen it. Sacrifice is not something that everybody can do. But I'll tell you this: that taking shots off the body like that is not fun. And he was doing it like it was that. Hey, that's my job. That's how I win. And he knows it. You can see it, and it started wearing off on the other guys. And the best part is that he was so defensive, like playing so well defensively, and so are the other guys. Mr. Tkachuk was unseen after the first period.
Truly was. Truly was. Leafs, I thought, played a solid game. We'll talk about the goal scorers, J Dog. We'll get the this up. Marner leads Maple Leafs in a 6-2 win over Sens. He had a goal and 2 assists last night. And this is the leadership that we were talking about that Mitch Marner hasn't really shown in the offseason. And here's game one, and he's star number one, J Dog. What do you think about Mitch Marner's play and his leadership in the game last night?
Well, I have to, as much as I give him credit for finishing that it was a beauty goal, but it was an even nicer pass, man. I have to give Matthews
Mm-hmm.
credit. I've been dogging Matthews for the last little bit. That was a beautiful pass. And I will say this though, Marner was all over the place last night. He skated back a lot better than he usually does. The number one thing which I bitched about all last year is he gives up the puck too much. Last night, the other night, I don't think I've seen him. I don't think he gave up the puck maybe more than once. I remember it once, but it wasn't a crucial moment. And that's what has been his biggest downfall since he started on this team is that he's been giving up the puck in the playoffs. I mean, he's been giving up the puck at crucial times, making these fancy passes or no look passes and stuff like that. And he's not playing that game anymore. He's much more responsible. He's much more responsible around the half boards, and he's much more responsible in his own zone, which is you can't that stuff you can teach, and obviously it had to be taught to him for the good guys like Nyes that have that defensive mind. And I'll give Matthews credit too; he's very good defensively. Yeah, Marner's an all offensive guy, and now that he's buying into this mentality, it's going to make him a better player. 100 points is I don't think that's he's not topping out at 100 points. I think next year he's going to be in the closer to 120, and I'm not joking. I really think I do because you don't get as many chances if you're in your own zone. And if you're not playing in your own zone, you're not going to get the puck out of your own zone. It's going to go in the net. You know what I mean? So I believe he's going to be even better than he has been in the past.
Well, let's touch on the other two stars of last night because really I thought he had a great game. John Tavares gets a goal and an assist, and with a guy that's had the C ripped off of his shoulder, I thought that he led the way a lot of the game last night. Every shift that he had, he was impactful. Getting the puck, dumping it in, banging and crashing. I took a cross check to the face, and like this guy can battle, and he's showing that he's still a leader. And he's like, you know what? I might not be the captain of this team, but I'm going to be one of the captains. I'm going to be one of those guys leading the way this first round to get the Leafs further ahead in this playoff series.
Oh, I agree. He's been, you know what? Last year, I think everybody kind of gave him a little bit of a raw dogging, but there was, people that stood up for him when he lost the captaincy. He never should have lost the captaincy. Last night, he won 50 somewhat. I think it was almost 60% of his faceoffs. He was in the corners after the puck. I think he had 3 takeaways last night, which tells you how hard he's back checking. Oh, yeah. And then I think he had 3 or 4 shots on net on top of that. So like he's all over the place. He's playing defensively really well. Actually where I'm finding him playing even better than where he usually does is the center ice, in the middle of the ice. He is being extremely. Let me change that to. He's thinking better. He's cutting off passes. He's getting into lanes that he never used to before. Or not, I won't say never used to, but he's definitely doing it better. He's becoming a disruptor, and he's added this element to his game that he didn't really have, or it was like a lower level in his game before. And now he's disrupting plays at a much higher level, wreaking havoc. And that's, again, I think that's the Nyes effect. You look at the way Nyes is playing; it's the same thing. He's a disruptor. He's getting in and after the puck. And that leadership, it's wearing off, for a young guy, and it just goes to show it can wear off even on the veterans.
All right, we got a comment on it. We'll move on, and we'll talk a little bit further about the game to come tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. On Tuesday evening. But Stolarz, boy, oh boy, he comes into this series really, I think, with something to prove. He finally gets his first job at being the number one goalie for the year, takes a team to the number one spot in the Atlantic Division. And boy, oh boy, did he play great. 31 saves a 939 save percentage last night, and that's just outstanding. That's the type of goaltending that is going to get you to that third round in the playoffs and even further. What did you think about Stolarz' play last night?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It was the ugliest good game I've ever seen in a goalie. He was super shaky. As far as his glove was concerned, he dropped or just knocked down. I don't know. I don't think he was doing it on purpose, but things were hitting off the top of his glove, and they were dropping down in front of him. The first goal was absolutely his fault. Like that. I mean, mind you, it always takes 5 other guys to get through, but he was trying to corral that puck because he didn't catch it properly, and then he dropped it in front of himself, and he tried to corral it, but he was way too slow corralling it. He looked very shaky to start off with. However, that's the only mistakes being made. He was stopping everything, obviously. And I have to say the second goal was not. I mean that could have been on anybody, but everything else, man, he's a brick wall. The breakaway, the friggin' the in tight stuff. He's not giving up anything. Yep. His pads are closed up, and when they're not closed up, they're stretched out 10 feet because he's got that. He's 6'5". I'm pretty sure he's got about 10 feet between his legs when he's stretched out. You're not scoring on him down low either, unless it's a rebound, and even then you're having a hard time because he's so big. So I think he's probably. I was having a discussion with one of our former teammates there that was on the show, and I told him before the game that he's going to be the difference. And he was the difference.
Yeah. 33 shots on net for Ottawa, and they could only squeeze by 2 by Stolarz. So an outstanding game from the new addition this year for the Toronto Maple Leafs from Florida. Let's comment on the rough stuff. We knew it was going to be a rough game. And with 56 hits for Ottawa in this game, I knew that they were going to bring it. And I knew that they were going to be aggressive. And I knew they were going to be physical because they're like, how do you beat Toronto? You got to beat them down. Because we're a well skating team. We've won a lot of hockey games, and we play 3 periods now. So when they fired out and they started the game, I thought that they kind of outskated us at the start, but we never backed down. And I thought that was a huge plus for the Leafs last night. We got 30 hits ourselves, but 56 to 36, 56 to 30, that's a pretty big difference in hits, but we still took the game 6-2.
Yeah, well, I believe that the start of the game, the Leafs kind of set the tone. There was 3 hits in the first shift that were all big hits by the Leafs. Actually, I think there was another 3 in the second shift, and then it started to change. I agree, as the physicality got different, and time on the puck. The Senators actually had a fair by the end of the game they definitely had more time on the puck, more puck possession, and I think that. The only thing is that you have to make good on the chances you get. And Ottawa just does. They've got one line that can finish. They got 2 defensemen that can finish, that are capable of finishing. The Leafs have got 3 lines that can finish, and they've got, probably 4 out of the 6 defensemen that can score goals. So it just depends on the way you, the way you finish. I think as far as winning against another good team that's made the playoffs, and the physicality, as much as they were trying to be physical, they weren't being physical at the right time. They may have out-checked us, but they, how many penalties they get. They check somebody and then they cross-check them, and even though a couple of them were soft, I'll admit that 2 of them were soft. It doesn't matter, man. If you keep cross-checking people left, right, and center, the referees have no choice but to call it. And that's not the ref's problem. That's your problem for not doing what you're supposed to do. Either start skating, and that's usually what happens with stick penalties. You're not skating hard enough, or you're being stupid, and obviously by the look at Mr. Green's face behind the bench, he was not impressed with some of these calls.
Yeah, I was just about to say say the exact same thing. Is that the coach was definitely pissed for sure. He's had enough about the cross checking and the penalties because it definitely hurt them, and it really truly shown their inexperience in the playoffs as well as their in maturity. They have no maturity at all. These guys are a bunch of young bucks that, this is a rebuild for Ottawa, a bunch of young bucks, and this is their first taste at the playoffs, and they're not mature. They got excited and they're taking silly penalties, and it cost them. And definitely in the Toronto building, it's going to cost them all series if they continue to do that.
Well, if you take a look at Toronto in general, they don't retaliate. You get Domi's probably Reeves isn't playing, so you get a couple of the defensemen like McCabe, like he'll retaliate. Benoit will retaliate, but there's 4 guys on the team that might retaliate. The rest of the team tend to skate away. So if you're trying to draw a penalty on this team, it's not the right team to be trying to do that on. They have the ability to walk away. Now, sometimes I wish they'd be a little bit more aggressive and get into it, but I think that the team's tough enough now physically and big enough physically that they're not intimidated anymore. So I think that makes a big difference, and you don't have to take penalties. You want to win. You're not going to win if you're in the penalty box.
So at the end of the game there's some rough stuff, and then they wanted to fight, and at least we're smart enough to kind of just skate away, right? Do they start Reeves here, or do they wait until Ottawa?
No. God, no. Why would you put Reeves in? There's no. And Reeves, I don't think Reeves can skate fast enough to stay in this game. Like, that was a fast game, man. That was pretty quick. And that's not even, if we make it to the next round, which I'm pretty positive we will, the next round's going to be even faster. There's no, however, I guess if you're going to put him in, now would be the time, because there's no way he wouldn't be able to skate with anybody in the next round. There's no way.
I agree with that. I just know it's been a topic, Jay, online. It's like, bring Reeves in. We gotta unleash the hound to Ottawa, but I don't think that we need him. We've got tough guys. We've got Bobby McCann that can throw them. We got Matthew Nyes. We've got Max Domi. We've got players that can drop the mitts, and we can't forget about McCabe, right? McCabe can really throw them. Tanev's never going to step down. Riley loves this team more than anything. These guys can throw them. And even Ekman-Larsson, I don't think that he'd be the first guy to fight, but I think that he still would. These guys are ready to go to battle. And it just feels different this year. The toughness, the maturity, just the way that they handled things last night was different from those past years that we've been watching these boys play. They've grown up. And I think a lot of it has to do with Berube.
Well, I'd put Pacioretty in there before I put Reeves in there, because I don't know what got under his saddle but there's a burr or two under there, and he's been a cantankerous motherfucker the whole year, just throwing his body around, and he's got to be around 230, and he's what, 6'4"? He's a big boy, and he's mean. And when you get older, you get that 35 and older, you get that man weight. When you hit somebody, it's not like a 20-year-old hitting you. It's heavy. So I would put him in there. Plus, he's a scoring threat, and he's got that Stanley Cup experience as well.
Yeah, and I thought that, I'll move over to the power play here briefly. I thought that we did well in the power play, right? We had that 5-on-3 chance. We buried one there, and we capitalized on our chances, moving the puck around well. We're getting traffic in front of Ullmark. I thought that we just had, a game plan, and we executed with, grace. We really did, and playoffs are about opportunities, and obviously a huge opportunities are on the power play, and the Leafs definitely capitalized last night.
Oh, absolutely. The only thing that I would say is that the first line needs to get off a little sooner, because what happens is when you're doing matchups, the Leafs second line is much stronger than Ottawa's second line, and I think that you're even in the third line, I think that you're going to get a lot more opportunity to score with those guys, at the start of the game anyway. Because I found that they were on the ice quite a long time, like a full minute. 35, 40 seconds. You still need to get off. I don't care who you are. You don't want to. Ottawa's got some speedsters on that team, and you don't want to end up with one in the back of your net while you're on the power play because you're tired.
Man, I want to. We'll move the conversation over. Just remember this: that hit on Cousins was something else. I can't remember who he hit. Maybe you can remember, but it's okay if you don't. But somebody tuned this kid from Buffalo, and boy, oh boy, did he get his bell rung.
Yeah, I can't remember either. I just actually watched it this morning, to be honest with you. I still can't remember who it was. But
boy, what a hit. It was obviously a defenseman. It was a defenseman.
Yeah, I'll be honest that Ottawa's a tough team. They're a lot bigger than I thought. Like I've only watched a couple games this year with Ottawa, and I have to admit they're actually a good sized team. They're fairly physical. There's no doubt. They're very quick, and they get on the puck pretty quick too. But they're still, again, it's the talent levels. They're 2 lines deep at the most, and
Too young.
yeah, they don't have 3 and 4 lines running like the Leafs do.
All right, well, let's move on to one comment or one question I wanted to ask the group before we get to basically the end of the show. Where are you watching from? If you've got this far, you're tuning in, you're a hockey fan. Put in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear it. And next show, I'll call out the person that's the furthest. I'll call out your name and say that you're watching and that you gave us a shout out and told us where you're from. I'm from New Brunswick, and I think the furthest for all of our listeners will probably be one of our hosts, which is J Dog in Punta Cana.
Yeah, I'm
no.
pretty sure. However, I got a couple of my friends in England that have watched the show, so I don't know. Maybe they'll put their name on there. I'm not too sure.
All right. Well, I gotta say, once again, that this guy really stood on his head, and goaltending can make a difference. And really, I think that this guy finally got his chance, and he had a team that believed in him, and a franchise that said, you know what, you're going to be our guy. And I think that we finally found our guy. I can't remember a goaltender that had a year like he did for the Leafs. Maybe Felix Potvin, maybe Anderson, but he has had a year. And I say, if we can play well in front of him and try to limit our mistakes, I think that this team can go pretty far.
I agree. He's it's not just him. I think, like, if you're looking in between the 3 goalies, and when I say the 3, I'm talking about playing it like against Ottawa. You look at them. I actually think that Ullmark last year was probably better than Stolarz, but now he's just improved so much with confidence. Yeah. I think he's a better goalie. And when you're talking about Ullmark, he was a Vezina trophy winner, right? So now, again, you're on a team like Boston, and you're only getting 10 shots a game. It kind of makes a difference. But when you got the Leafs that are high flying, you're going to get lots of shots. And this guy he's protecting the pipes, man. I'm telling you, he's doing a great job, and Wall's been doing a great job too. So I think just in those 3 goalies alone, you have 3 really good goalies, and there's not a lot of difference between them. But I think Wall, again, has caught up to Ullmark. If you want my honest opinion, he's right there with him.
He's pretty solid as well. Well, I wanted to bring a little bit of fluff for the show, something different. But this is a true story from my neighborhood. So I just moved to Petitcodiac, New Brunswick. It's about a half an hour west of Montreal, Moncton, sorry. And my neighbors went down to a little Good Friday poker game, and the neighbor, huge Leaf fan, and he says, "You know what, Jamie? Every year in the playoffs, when the Leafs score, I honk my horn because the neighbor guy that was sitting across from the poker game, like my neighbor, he's a huge Ottawa fan." Well, last night, after the first goal, I open my front door. I'm hearing the horn and knocking, and I'm seeing him out there. He's just a pounding. It was great. But then Ottawa scores. Doesn't the neighbor come out with pots and pans? He's banging them. Oh my gosh.
Fantastic.
I just thought it was great. And
That's
you know
amazing.
what? That's what hockey's all about. That's what the passion's all about. And to have neighbors like that, hockey fans, I think I bought on the right street. I'm pretty sure. Well, let's get to the main part of the show. I like anyway, is our game prediction and as well as our keys to success. What do you think there, Jay? How did the Leafs take a 2-0 lead in this series?
Well, again, faceoffs are very key. That controlled the game last night as far as the Leafs were concerned. When they had the puck, it was mostly off the faceoff. Johnny T's been fantastic. Matthews has been good when he's taken them as well. And I think, honestly, you're going to end up with the speed that the Leafs have, even off the faceoff, right off the faceoff, the way they get to the puck. It is getting to the puck the fastest. It's going to be real issues for the Ottawa Senators. The Leafs, when they're attacking, they get to the puck very quickly. When there's free pucks, they get to the puck faster than Ottawa has, and they can do it with 4 lines. All 4 lines in the Leafs are as fast, if and faster than Ottawa. And I think honestly the tenacity is going to be the biggest deal. Like I said, when you're really two lines deep as far as Ottawa's concerned, and Toronto can roll all four lines with speed, and I think Berube has extreme confidence in his third and fourth line. So he doesn't want them out there against the best lines, but with Ottawa, second line, third line, and fourth line, he'll put anybody out there against them. And it's just if you're running four lines like they can, it's just going to tire a team like this out because you're going to be, the top guys are going to be playing 25 and 30 minutes a game, and that's just too much at this speed.
I love it. What's your prediction for the score?
I'm going to say probably 4-2 Leafs. I'm going to say probably a 3-2 game with an empty netter, and it's going to be a little tighter game than the last one. I think that Stolarz will actually play better. As much as he played well, I still don't think he played anywhere near his best game. Like I said, he was shaky on a lot of shots. I think he was nervous. He knows he's the guy now, so I think he was a little bit nervous. I was a little nervous when he got hit there. That was intentional too, with Stützle running into him. That was 100% intentional. But he got up and I was listening to Kevin Weeks last night talking about his knee injuries, and then this happens, and I'm like, oh my God, so he hopped right back up though. But goaltending, defensive play, making sure that you get in your own zone and come back and help and box in and make sure that you're blocking shots. This team's doing it already, and I don't think we need to change very much. And again, Berube is a guy that can change on the fly. He knows how to play other people's other team systems, and match up against them. So I think that he's been a very good chess player, and this is the reason why he's been as successful as he has been in the last 6-7 years. And I firmly believe that he's getting better as he's getting older. So this is definitely the chess playing is probably going to be the number one thing, matching the lines properly and making sure that the guys are getting the proper rest against when they're playing against the top lines. You still got to put out your lower level lines to play against the top line every once in a while to make sure that your team and offset it. Make sure that your good guys are getting out against their bad. Well, I don't say bad guys. You're in the NHL, but their third and fourth line every once in a while.
That's the stuff that a normal fan normally doesn't notice, right? Is the chess game that it goes on with. Okay, who's out there, and okay, I've got last change because it's my home game. That's what what in the Atlantic was so great about, right? Because we've got more last minute decisions on who's going out there to take that draw and to defend the zone or to be out there to score a goal.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. My game prediction, I'm going to say it's going to be a rough and tough one. I'm going to say 5-4. It's going to go 4-4 late in the third. Leafs will take the lead. I'm going to say Riley's going to get the game winner again. No, this guy, had a tough time, and he was having, a tough few games. He stepped up, got a goal last night, had a pretty good game. I think he's going to step it up. But I really think it's going to be a rough and tough one. Lots of penalties because, boy, it was rough at the end there of this one. Wanted to say again, thanks so much for tuning in. We really appreciate your support. We're going to be here all playoff long to cheer these Leafs on. But I hear them already down the street. They're banging their pots and pans and they're hitting their horn. You know why? Because it's playoff hockey, baby, and the Leafs are back. Go Leafs, go! Let's cheer them on, and we'll see you before Game 3 next time on Keep Your Head Up Hockey.
Later.